Before Darwin, before Genesis, before any modern theory of human origins, someone else already had an answer. They wrote it down in detail on clay tablets in a language we can still read, and what they wrote is either the oldest creation myth ever recorded or something far more uncomfortable than that. The Sumerians describe in multiple texts how human beings were made, not by accident, not by evolution, not by divine birth alone, by design, by intention, by beings they called the Anunnaki. This is not interpretation, this is translation. The text exists, the words are there. What we do with them, that's where it gets complicated. The word Anunnaki appears across hundreds of Sumerian and Akkadian texts, literally translated those of royal blood, or in some readings, those who came from the sky to earth. They were not a single deity. They were a group, a council, a class of beings positioned above humans and below the highest cosmic force. In the text, they have names, roles, disagreements. They hold meetings, they vote, they complain about their workload. They are described with a specificity that makes them feel less like symbols and more like administrators. Whatever they were, the Sumerians didn't treat them as metaphor. They treated them as fact. Here is where the text becomes specific and stranger. According to the Atrahasis epic, one of the oldest narrative texts ever recorded, the Anunnaki faced a crisis. The lesser gods, the Igigi, had been assigned to dig canals, mine the earth, and maintain the irrigation systems that keep Mesopotamia alive. After thousands of years, they rebelled. They burned their tools. They surrounded the Hall of Enlil, chief of the Anunnaki, and refused to continue. The solution proposed was not negotiation, it was creation. Build a being that could carry the workload, a being intelligent enough to follow instructions, but not so powerful it would threaten the other. The being they decided to create was us. The text describes a specific process. The goddess Nima, also called Ninhursag, serves as the chief biological engineer. Enki, god of wisdom and water, provide the design, and the material they use is described in precise terms: the flesh and blood of a god, mixed with clay. The Sumerian word used is titu, clay, or more specifically, the earth mixed with something living. The result after multiple attempts, multiple failures, multiple prototypes that didn't work was Lulu, the first human worker. The text described early humans as unable to reproduce independently. That came later as a secondary modification, a being designed for labor, upgrade for longevity, then at some point given the ability to multiply. The upgrade that changed everything was not planned. According to the text, it was a decision that caused conflict among the Anunnaki themselves. Here is where the ancient text and modern biology arrive at the same uncomfortable question from different directions. The human genome contains approximately 220 genes that have no identifiable predecessor in the evolutionary tree. They don't appear in lower organisms. They arrive fully formed in the human genetic sequence with no clear explanation for how. This is documented, published, discussed in peer-reviewed literature. The debate is not whether these genes exist, The debate is where they came from. The Sumerians, 4,000 years ago, didn't have the vocabulary for genetics, but they had a story about beings who modified living material to produce a new kind of creature. Whether that story is memory, metaphor, or coincidence is a question science has not closed. The story doesn't end with creation. In the same tradition, in the Atrahasis epic in Gilgamesh, in text predicting the biblical flood, account by over 1,000 years, the Anunnaki decided to destroy the human population. The reason given in the text is noise. Humans had multiplied beyond control. The earth was loud. The Anunnaki couldn't sleep. Enlil called for a flood. But Enki, who had designed the humans, warned one man, gave him instruction, save the genetic line. The story is familiar because it traveled through Babylon, through Canaan, into the text. We still read a scripture today. The Sumerians wrote it first, and in their version, the gods who sent the flood were not all in agreement. Subscribe for more hidden history. It would be easy to push this further than the evidence allows. The texts do not say the Anunnaki came from another planet. They do not describe spacecraft. They do not use the word alien. Those additions came later from modern interpreters, not from the clay. What the texts do say consistently across multiple sources, across Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian traditions, is that human beings were deliberately shaped by beings more powerful than themselves, for a purpose that served those beings' needs. Whether that is mythology, memory, or something else entirely. The intellectual honesty required here is simple. We don't fully know, and 4,000 years of not knowing should probably make us more curious, not less. The tablets are still there in the British Museum, in the University of Pennsylvania, in collections across the world, cataloged, translated, available for anyone willing to read them. They were written by people who believed they were recording history, not inventing story, not composing mythology for entertainment, recording what they understood to be true about where they came from and why. 1,000 years later, we have space telescopes, gene sequencers, and particle accelerators, and we still haven't answered the same question they were trying to answer when they pick up at the stylus. Where did we come from, and did something or someone have a reason for making us the way we are? The clay still holds the question. We just haven't decided yet whether we're ready to take it seriously.